morning, Journey Church. Please be seated. So good to see you all here this morning. We were just celebrating a wonderful 4th of July, our 250th in the greatest nation in the world. And yes, that's my opinion, and I'm holding the mic, so there you go. And I am just filled with a heart of gratitude this morning because God is so good. He's so good to me. He has given me so many wonderful gifts. I have the blessing of all of my family living just within an arm's reach away, and all of them serving God is the biggest thing right there. And I was just so overcome with gratitude this morning during our prayer time, and just thinking, I don't even have words to say, and it just flowed out like tears because I'm just so thankful for all that He has done for me and all that He has given me. And you know, I believe that part of that hallelujah that we have to give, that's all that we have to give, that it involves gratitude too. God loves gratitude. You know, when you do something nice for someone and they come to you and they're just profuse in their thanksgiving and they tell you how awesome it was and how it made them feel. And then as parents, when our kids come to us and say things that just make our hearts swell because we realize that they're getting it. They're understanding that a sacrifice was made and they are the benefactors and they are being blessed because of that. You know, that's what God wants from us. He just wants us to understand that every good thing that happens to you, and by the way, if it happens to you, it's a good thing because God allowed it. It may not feel good, but it will be good. And when you realize that and you give Him your gratitude, He's like, they're getting it. They're getting it. And that's what we're here for. I just want to thank you for being here this morning, worship Him, and happy 4th of July. Happy 5th of July, too.
Morning, everyone. I'm here for offering, and as I was driving to church today, one of the scriptures came on the radio, and it said, from Proverbs 3:5, it's trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not to your own understanding. In all your ways submit to Him, and He will make your path straight. And do not be wise in your own eyes, and fear the Lord and shun evil. And I thought it was so on point, because in today's world of do your own research and research everything and know everything, we tend to lean on our own understanding a lot more. We're in the information age, right? Information age tells you don't give to the church. The church just takes your money and does whatever they want to do. Information age says, why do you even need to go to church? You can reach God by yourself in your own home. Information age says, why am I in community? I can do this by myself. People are messy. I don't need to be around people. That's what the information age tells you. Believe me, I'm speaking to myself here. Because as far away from people I can be, I'm more happy most of the time. Just being real. But that's not what God called us to be. He didn't call us to be researchers or our own thing. He called us to be obedient to Him. And the Bible cautions us with this. Don't get so caught up in doing your own research and figuring things out and then relying on that, because that will lead you down a path of horrors that you don't even need to be around. God says, trust me, and trust the people He puts around you, right? There's some times where you do your own research and you're looking at stuff and this makes all the sense in the world, and then you bring it to somebody who's a brother or sister in Christ and they'll tell you, JT, I don't think that's a good idea right now. And then we want to push it aside and ignore it because we've done our own research, right? We know this is the right move. But sometimes God puts people beside you just to be that check. Why would you invite somebody to be your counsel and then not listen to them? That doesn't make any sense. If you're married and you bring a decision to your spouse and they say, I don't think it's a good idea, why would you not listen to them? Why would you not? Why would you ignore them and just do it your own? That's not what God put that person there beside you for. You listen, you take that counsel, and you don't do what you think is wise in your own eyes. You listen to God. So God, we come to you today abandoning our own logic, abandoning our own intelligence, and we consider ourselves inferior to come to you and listen to your wisdom, because we know at your wisdom we can succeed, and only in your wisdom. So God, as we take our gifts today and we give them to you, we ask that you multiply it for your kingdom, Father, to do your work and your will. And thank you for letting us be a small part of that. In Jesus' name, amen. So a few announcements today. Number one, Outdoorsman Club. So Sunday, July 12th at 5:30 at Nate's house. Where is he? There he is. Okay, at his property. They're going to be doing some shooting and some fun activities. What do you say? Grenade launchers? Grenade launchers this time. Long distance. Not necessarily grenade launchers, but may include grenade launchers. We never know. At 5:30. All right, so, and also next Sunday is G3 Ladies Meeting. At 6 p.m. is going to be in Callan's house, so she might hear the shooting that's going on in the grenade launchers, but also bring a snack to share because it'll be a great time. And also men, July 17th through the 18th, there is going to be a live stream hosted here. It's a 1613 Act Like Men conference. If you have not signed up yet, and I didn't until this morning, so go inside the church center, pull the app up right now on your phone, go inside church center and sign up. It's $40, that includes everything with lunch and everything. So please sign up and then come on out, it'll be a great time. And also the last Sunday, July 26th, there will be a 180 youth meal fundraiser. It's $10 for adults, $6 for children. It's going to be enchiladas, beans, rice, spice cake, coffee, tea, and water. It'll be a great time. So that is all. Children.
Oh, okay. Good morning. Confusion. I thought we double booked. I thought maybe he was going to preach. Well, happy 4th of July. Happy 5th of July. And I'm glad to see our visitors. I'm not going to start naming names. I learned from my father's mistakes. That's how you get in trouble. You'll forget somebody. But it's good to see all the familiar faces and the new ones as well. This is truly, say it every week. I'm going to continue to say it though. This is family right here. This is like staff meeting. This is where we can come and we can lean on each other. We can bear each other's burdens in here, because once you go out in the world, and yes, you still are the church out in the world, but once you go out in the world, it's all give. You are going to give and not receive it all. So this is where we come back to, we need this, right? Remember, God never told you to go to church for him. He doesn't need you to go to church. It's not some service that you're doing for him. You need you to go to church, right? And so this is what it's about, and done right. This is family, and yeah, we're all human and we make mistakes, but we love deeply and we forgive easily, and all good things, right? So it's good to be in the house of the Lord. I'm going to get right into the word. I am going to speak briefly about men's meeting. Guys, Nate has been doing a fantastic job. He's put a lot of work into this. He's revamped it, making it more about relationship, community. Yeah, we're going to still have some sneak some Bible in there, but this will be speak an opportunity to reach out and invite people to things, right? And to start developing that relationship, because that's what it's about, is relationship. So conference is important, guys. If you're a core member, a man, even if you're not, come try. Please sign up for the conference, be a part of it. But also, let's invite people to some of these functions that we got going on. All right, so we're in the parables of Jesus still, 23 deep, and I'm going to tell you, there are happy, joyful, encouraging parts of the Bible. I promise you. But it feels like Jesus just got them down there and he just wouldn't let them up. You know what I mean? He's just going to keep. Sometimes it feels that way. But you are talking about being a disciple of the only perfect man in history. So if you thought it was going to be easy, you were only kidding yourself. So, parables of Jesus. Jesus is painting a picture. Give a brief overview. He's painting a mosaic of the kingdom of heaven, the gospel, what that means, what it means to be a kingdom citizen, how we should act with each other, how we should act with the world. And so remember, he's talking to the church. He's not talking to the world, all right? And some of this, like I said, it feels like sometimes it's just like, I wished I had some better news, you know? It feels like it's just constantly, I was listening to an old, I can't even remember, I think it was Jonathan Edwards had a sermon that said hypocrites, how's it worded? Hypocrites lazy in your prayer life or something like that. And he's like, that could have been the whole sermon right there. I didn't even need, you don't even got to preach the sermon. We just all go home feeling terrible about ourselves. But anyway, so we're continuing on the parables of Jesus. The title of my message today is The Unforgiveness of the Unworthy. Let's pray. Father, thank you again for who you are. Thank you for the privilege and the honor to be considered a child of yours, Father. Thank you for the great sacrifice of your Son. Thank you for the true statue of liberty. The true thing that gave us liberty was your Son dying on the cross for our sins so that we could be right with you, Father. Please pour your word out onto us and help us to change the aspects and areas of our lives that need to be corrected and changed and molded, Father. And help us to do it willingly. In Jesus Christ's name I pray. Amen. So we're going to get right into Luke 17, 1 through 10, and I'm going to take it verse by verse. And he said to his disciples, verse 1, and he said to his disciples, temptations to sin are sure to come, but woe to the one through whom they come by. So right there, that's going to solve some problems. That's going to solve some mysteries for you. Temptations, tribulations, problems, they're sure to come. He's telling you that. Now, it's also in the Lord, we just talked about last week, it's also in the Lord's Prayer to pray that temptations don't come, but know eventually they are going to come. And so what do you need to be doing? You need to be preparing for when the temptations come. And it also gives you a very good warning here, but woe to the ones through who they come through. So make sure, on top of the fact that you need to be preparing yourself and guarding yourself to deal with temptation, but you also need to be very guarded that you're not the one who's bringing the temptation to people, that you're not the one testing people. Woe to the one who temptation comes through. It would be better for him if a millstone were hung around his neck and he were cast into the sea than he should cause one of the little ones to sin. Now, we talked about this when we talked about that parable, so I'm not going to go into great depth about what the millstone represents and all that, but I will tell you this. I do believe God has a special place in his heart for children. It's like physical children. But I also believe that he sees each and every one of us as that child. Right? And so I believe that this is a stronger warning than it says, listen, if you're going to be the reason, you're going to be the cause that one of these new Christians, one of these little babies in the faith, get pushed further away from the faith. If you're going to be the obstacle, if you're going to be the thing I have to work around instead of through to bring somebody into the kingdom, it'd probably be better off if you just had a millstone tied around your neck and thrown in the bottom of the ocean. And so you got to remember, Jesus was the greatest storyteller to ever live. So when he painted a picture right. All right? And he used comparative language all the time. So he was saying, this would be better for you. So imagine how bad it's going to be if you're the thing I'm constantly having to work around. If you're the reason that people are constantly turning around going, if that's Christianity, if that's the God they serve, if this is the example, then I don't want to be any part of that. Verse 3, pay attention to yourselves. If your brother sins, rebuke him. And if he repents, forgive him. So I love this scripture. Jesus was a lot of things, but soft wasn't one of them. People think you've got to be one of two ways as a Christian, and we talk about it often, but they think you either got to be a legalistic, hardcore, everybody's going to hell except for those who get, squeak in, carry around the King James Bible like this, where I can really make a dent when I hit somebody with it, or they think we got to be a doormat. We just got to be accepting and whatever you want to do to me, please, sir, may I have another one. Jesus was anything but soft. And if you look, and I often said this, but the people who ultimately had him killed, all right, the religious hierarchy, you can call them what they want. They were a mafia of their day and age. And Jesus, it's no words. He didn't pull any punches. He looked at them and he told them exactly how it was. He drove them out of the temple when it was time. I mean, he was hard. But what he wasn't, and this is where I'll caution you, what he wasn't was reactive. Jesus didn't lose his cool and go up there and throw everybody out of the temple and be like, look, guys, I overreacted. Y'all shouldn't have been doing that in the temple, but I could have gone about it an easier way. No, he meant to do that. Matter of fact, I think it specifically tells you for a reason that he went and sat, and like he didn't go buy a whip, he didn't find a whip, he sat and wove a whip. He had time to reflect. He was probably praying, making sure getting himself right and his mind right before he did what he had to do. So make no mistakes. You're not called to be soft. If somebody, and it tells you right here, pay attention to yourself. If your brother sins, rebuke him. Right? Be careful about that now, okay? You're not judge, jury, and executioner. He's talking about if he sins against you. If he wrongs you, you can call him out and say, hey, man, that wasn't, Remember, too, I'm going to go a little bit of a tangent here because I think this is prevalent. Remember, too, it's not always just what you do. It's how you do it. Because let me just speak first person. I have been guilty in my past of being morally and factually, according to the Bible, correct. And being very, very wrong in my approach and my attitude of how I handle it. Right? If I use the example at work all the time, I'm in charge of anywhere from 40 to 50 people, depending on the day, to more than that. And I've got to hear everything, and I've got to have a lot of conversations. I've got to have a lot of meetings, and then I come home, and I have you find people, and we got to have even more meetings and conversations. And so it's an ongoing thing. And so there is a right way and a wrong way to do something. And sometimes there are people that I have to take aside, especially people that manage other people. You have to be very careful. Okay? And I have to take them aside, and I have to correct them. That's just the fact of life. I have to be corrected. You have to be corrected. It's going to be a thing. But I have to take them aside, and I have to correct them. And I can take them aside, and I'll use my dad, since this is poetic turnabout here, to use him as an example. I could take my dad aside if he was my subordinate, and I could say, Randy, man, you're doing a fantastic job, but I really need you to focus on this or that, and we can't have this again. Like, this is a serious issue. Can't happen again. Not mad, it's just a thing. Or I can take him aside and are you stupid? Do you have a learning disability, or is there something I'm saying that's not clear to you? I'm doing the same thing in the second way is very wrong. You can say whatever you want. You can do the right thing in the wrong way all day long. And let me tell you something. You might as well save yourself the time of doing the right thing to begin with, because you just made it wrong. So there's no benefit to you. And what you did, honestly, instead of helping correct a brother right there, is you pushed him away. You want to see me double down on some efforts? Talk to me like that in front of people. Remember, I'm trying to be like Jesus. I'm not like him yet. It's a journey. And shout out, there you go. That wasn't even on purpose. Verse 4, and if he sins against you 7 times, see, this is where it gets hard. Jesus said some hard things, man. And if he sins against you 7 times in a day and turns to you 7 times saying, I repent, you must forgive him. And the disciples said, increase our faith. I love that. All right. So I like the way this was pointed out. I was studying up on this. I'd like to take credit for this, but I read it somewhere. But I don't think Jesus, he's covering his bases, right? I mean, let's be realistic. Let's get down to the real life. If you come to me and wrong me and you're like, I'm terribly sorry, I screwed up. And I say, it's fine. and you do that 7 more times in a day, you're not really sorry. So let's get past that, all right? So I don't even really have to forgive you the 7th time because you didn't really apologize. But what it's talking about, 7 is the number of completeness, of totality. And so what he's saying is if you have been wronged in the most complete and utter way you possibly could be wronged, by a brother now, nonetheless. This is talking about in the faith. Now, don't get off on the well, I only got to forgive other Christians then, no, because it also says if you stand praying before God or about to give an offering and you have unforgiveness in your heart, go and make it right before you ever give the offering. So that it's everybody. But in this case, it's talking about a brother. And it says 7 times. So if you've been wronged in the most complete way possible, they could do the absolute worst thing to you. And because you are a follower, because you're a disciple of Christ, you're called to forgive them. And I said, oh my God, increase our faith. And really, honestly, a part of every one of us should say that. Right? Because we can say it. I mean, we could, I've been forgiven much. I've been forgiven more than I'll ever forgive. I can logically know these things. I understand that my life is no longer my own, right? We understand that. That everything that I was given after the time that I was redeemed through Christ is because of Christ. Therefore, I owe whatever he asks of me, I owe to him. I can understand that. But can I do it? Increase my faith. And honestly, that was the disciples basically saying, hey man, you haven't given us enough faith to do that. That's a great theory, but I mean, you might have it, but we ain't there. To which Jesus answered, and the Lord said to them, if you had faith like a grain of mustard seed, you could say to this mulberry tree, be uprooted and planted in the sea, and it would obey you. It would obey you. So, I like looking at the context of stuff. I like looking up the history, man. I started this parable series, and I thought, I don't know if I've ever studied the Bible the way I was supposed to, because, again, Jesus wasn't just picking things, He wasn't just saying, I don't know, if you had faith like a seed, you could tell that tree over there to be uprooted, right? It's a symbolism. So I looked up what the mulberry tree is then. It wasn't the mulberry that you and I know, but it was a sycamore fig tree. The tree in Luke 17:6 is the sycamore fig tree, not the black mulberry. The translation, I pasted all in here. It was a common tree in ancient Israel known for its deep, tenacious root system. Rabbinic sources, rabbinic texts, so the traditions, notes that it notes its deep roots, and it has rules in Mishnah prohibiting planting it within a certain distance, often 50 cubits of a neighbor's cistern or well, to prevent root damage or issues from its prolific fruit shedding. Some later commentaries mention the tradition that its roots could remain in the ground for centuries, sometimes citing it as 600 years this root system would last, underscoring how difficult it was to uproot it. Jesus pairs the tiniest seed with one of the most stubbornly rooted trees and commands it to be yanked up and thrown into the sea. So look, he's painting a picture, and he's really telling you, and I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but he's saying, look, they're saying, increase our faith. We can't be forgiving somebody like that. Jesus said, you already had enough faith. I've given you enough faith. If you have the smallest amount of faith, because remember, and I love this, it's not how much faith you have, it's what your faith is in, right? So if you have the smallest seed, because what do seeds do? They grow. If you have the smallest seed of faith in the right thing, that it will grow into the faith you need to uproot the deepest, most problematic thing that can grow in you and wrap around your heart and take control and never let you go, and that's unforgiveness. Because unforgiveness is the thing that will choke you out. It is the thing that will kill you. It is the thing that will affect every single choice you make. And I'm going to tell you the greatest irony and the greatest tragedy of the whole thing is the people that hurt you, the people that you're harboring unforgiveness for, you carry it around, and before you know it, you've done the same exact thing they did to you, to other people, all while holding on to that identity of this victim that was mistreated and that I'm going to harbor unforgiveness because of how hurt I was. We talked about it a few weeks ago. Hurt people. And they leave a pile because they can't see past their own hurt. Because they can't get rid of those roots. That's all they can see, and they leave a pile of damaged people in their wake, and it just continues and continues and continues. Nobody starts off thinking, you know what, I'm going to ruin every single person's life that has to do with me. Nobody plans that stuff. Nobody did it on purpose. And like we just talked about when we talked about wounds, and you know, there are real wounds in our life. There are real hurts in our life. There are real reasons that I might harbor unforgiveness in my heart. I'm not diminishing that. Somebody really did something to you that damaged you. I'm not belittling it or diminishing it. I get that there's hurt. But if you can't let it go, if you just hold on to it and you let those roots grow and continue to harbor, and you don't let the faith in the one that forgave you more grow, then all you're going to do is repeat that same history. You're going to hurt people in the midst of your hurt. You're going to damage people in the midst of your damage and never even know it until it's too late. And so he says, if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, in rabbinic text, that was the smallest thing they would mention was a mustard seed. That's why it's always used as a little thing to compare it to. He says, will any one of you who has a servant plowing or keeping sheep say to him when he has come in from the field, come at once and recline at the table? Now listen, we have, remember he's talking to first century Israel, all right? So I get there's all sorts of things in the world, but this is talking about what would be considered an indentured servant, okay? This is like the parable of the one that was forgiven much from the king, and he went out and he choked the guy that owed him a little bit and threw him in prison. You had two options when you owed money and you couldn't pay it, and there were systems set up, but we think of everything, I guess, in the context of the Western world and how slaves were. This is not the same slavery, right? And so they didn't have the concept of bankruptcy then. It's great. And you know what? We're going to talk about that here in a little bit. We have gotten a little entitled and spoiled in this comfortable Western mindset and understanding of things that I got bad news for you. We can say what we want, but they can't really go wave a magic wand and call it bankruptcy and then all your debt's just gone, right? You still created it. You still owed it. And so back then, if you couldn't pay, you had two options. They could throw you in prison and basically throw away the key and say you can't pay, or you could become an indentured servant, which means I don't own you, but I own your labor, if that makes sense. Okay? You owe me something, and until it's paid off, I own your labor. Never am I going to be selling something other than just basic politeness. Am I going to sell something for a fair price and just be so grateful that they paid me money? They owe me money. If I provide a service for somebody, I don't thank my boss every time like, oh my God, the paycheck came again. You're something else. No, he owes me money. It's required, right? I owe him work. He owes me money. And we get this faulty notion of God somehow. Let me finish the parable. I'm getting so far ahead. I'm sorry. Will any of you who has a servant plowing or keeping sheep say to him, who's coming from the field, come at once and recline at the table? Will he not rather say to him, prepare supper for me and dress properly and serve me while I eat and drink, and afterward you will eat and drink? Does he thank the servant because he did what he was commanded? So you also, when you have done all that you were commanded, say, we're unworthy servants. We have only done what was our duty. Y'all get up here and try and talk for a minute. Look, there's, again, and I get this, especially with this Western mindset, and the way life's been good, and the way that we have this, we so praise individualism. I mean, down to our core, down to, you see it, like you see it in these other countries, and this is one of the most crazy things to me, that we're still so wildly successful here in the West, is you see in these other countries, they build dynasties, right? They build the business, and their son or their daughter takes it over, and they improve upon it, and then they just continue until they build it into this family dynasty. We are so consumed with being our own, and having our own voice, and being an influencer, and being a leader, and my individualism, that everything's got to be about me. And if you don't accept me for me, then you're the problem, not me, right? And to the point where I see it all the time. You should have started I would have worked for you, Dad. But anyway, I guess I kind of do. But anyway, you should have started one with more money involved in it, is what you should have done. Anyway, to the point where you see a parent build a business, the kid doesn't want to have anything to do with it. They want to go do their own, make their own name, make their own way. And I've got some bad news for you. See, because I say this all the time too, but it really just comes down to whether you believe the Bible, this whole Christian thing, this whole Bible thing, or not. Because you are an unworthy servant. God doesn't owe you a thing. And we can, again, know it. I know it. But then why do you get so upset every time something doesn't go right in your life? God doesn't owe you a good life. Matter of fact, and this one, this bugs me the most. You can't have an easy life and a strong character. I hate that. I want both. You know, you should be able to, I think. I think God should test it out on me, but I don't know. But God owes you nothing. You owe him everything, because your very existence is a gift. And we don't like that. We like to think, no, I'm my own person. I'm the old poem. I'm the master of my fate. I'm the captain of my ship. No, you're not. No, you're not. You can want to think that. We can go back, and this cracks me up too. And I think we're telling ourselves more than we tell our kids this. But this is, well, that's not fair. Your life's not fair. We're not telling them so they understand. We're complaining with them. That's not fair. Yeah, well, life's not fair. You think this is fair over here? No, it stinks on this side too. Life's not fair. I'm complaining, I know. But this life isn't fair. Because if this life was fair, what would you get? Thank God this life's not fair. Thank God we don't get what we deserve. And again, I think conceptually we forget sometimes that at the end of the day, at the end of my life, the only thing, you take all the good, you take all the bad, and the only thing that my life warrants is hell. And if I am not immediately thrown into hell, it's by the grace and the mercy and the sacrifice of Jesus Christ. I am an unworthy servant, and anything that I'm called to do, I'm just to do. It is no favor to God. Do we believe this or not? Because once you look at yourself, I like I was discussing Cold Case Christianity. I can't remember the gentleman's name, but the book, Cold Case Christianity. I might have talked about it last week. I don't remember. I'm starting to think I talk too much. Anyway, you lose track of the conversation. But he said his life was great. His marriage was great. His finances were great. He was a cold case detective. That's kind of how he approached it. You know, whether he was an atheist. But he said he believed it was true. He searched it out and found the evidence, and he believed it was true. And then he had to come to the conclusion: am I going to look at myself in the mirror and say, I believe this is true, but I am turning my back on the truth, and I'm going to go walk away and do something else because I want to do what I want to do? or am I going to walk in truth? Because once you've come to the conclusion that this is true, then you just have to ask yourself, am I going to ignore the truth or am I going to walk in it? So what is a servant? Your own as a servant, because again, we just have to accept this. We're an unworthy servant. God has given us that much more. God has adopted us into his family. But what's your due, what you're owed, is nothing. You owe. Remember the concept of the indentured servitude. If you're indentured to God as your master, how long are you going to have to work for him until it's paid off? So what's a servant? You're owed nothing. The servant obeys unconditionally. Oof. That's a rough one. But the minute you start adding conditions to your obedience, then it's not obedience. The minute you have to feel good about these things, right? I don't have to be, let me say it like this. I don't have to be warm and fuzzy and confident and just happy about everything God asked me to do. I don't even have to have that much faith in what God asked me to do. I have to have faith in who God is. And because I know who God is, I can trust him with every part of my life. I can trust him in every circumstance, the good and the bad, the ups and the downs, the happiness and the sorrow and tragedy. And I can say, while I lean into this grief, while this is a horrific thing, while this is real hurt, I know that my very existence from God is a blessing, and I know that God will use this to bring about something good for his glory. So I can lean into my grief, and I can experience it, and I can heal, and I can do all the things, and nobody's asking you to be a machine. But man, I wonder how faster we would get through these times. How much less hard times we'd have to have if we could take this approach of, I am an unworthy servant and I just want to learn what you have to teach me. I want to go through and experience the things that you need me to go through for my next trial, how you're going to use me. And if we would lean into that, and I've 41 years and God's finally starting to get through to me, I'm just kind of like, I'm learning to calm down and be like, okay, what's next? What's next? Because I can look back on my life and I can see how God has intricately used every little thing, even me in my wrongness, and used it to develop me into somebody that I needed to be. And finally, God isn't your coach. God isn't your consultant. God isn't somebody that you hire in, you bring in, you say, well, thank you for that advice. Seems good. You are God. But we're going to consider it, probably go a different direction. That's not who this is. It's not how this whole Christian thing works. And we laugh, it's funny, it's a joke, but that's how a lot of us approach it. That's how that's how every one of us has approached it at one point in time. Read something in the Bible and go, ugh. Don't want to do that. We'll get to that later. We'll put that on the list last, and when I get everything else right, we'll come back to that. Because last but not least, servants are driven by duty, not self-gratification. We are unhappier than probably we have ever been in history. And this is intriguing to me. This is very interesting to me, so I'm gonna nerd out for just a minute. And this is AI. I just typed it in today. There's all kind of studies. I've seen a lot of different. I'm a big stat guy. I like stats, so I could stand up here and read stats to you. But I just saved the AI part because I thought it was so interesting. So why are we so unhappy today, and especially in the West? And so bear with me for a minute. I'm going to read this to you. It says, we seem more unhappy today because modern society has effectively optimized for comfort while unintentionally dismantling the core physiological pillars of human fulfillment. While global living standards, medicines, and technologies are objectively better than at any point in history, data shows a measurable, decade-long rise in global unhappiness and a stark collapse in youth well-being. This paradox, being materially richer but emotionally poorer, is driven by several distinct physiological, cultural, and structural shifts. One, it's a little long, but it's interesting. Stick with me. The death of distance and the comparison trap. For most of human history, people evaluated their success by comparing yourselves. Now remember, this is just AI. This isn't biblical truths. Don't compare yourself to anybody but yourself, right? That's the most important thing, but this is still interesting. People evaluated their success by comparing themselves to a small local community of neighbors and peers. Today, the digital age forces hyper-comparison, curated perfections. Platforms like Instagram and TikTok expose users to the top 1% of global wealth, beauty, and talent, making normal, comfortable lives feel just simply inadequate. Status anxiety, according to data highlighted in the World Happiness Report, heavy social media use severely distorts self-perception, transforming life from a collaborative experience into a competitive zero-sum game. The erosion of social infrastructure. Humans are biologically wired for tribal, face-to-face cooperation. Modern life has systematically commercialized and atomized these bonds. The loneliness epidemic, traditional community anchors such as local clubs, religious institutions, and extended family networks have steeply declined over the last few decades. I am so tired of hearing I don't have to come to church to have a relationship with God. You absolutely don't. And you know what? I'm not even going to be disappointed in you because I'm not the one who made that up. I asked somebody the other day, and again, it's really as simple as this, and it's as simple with every one of us, and I'm as guilty as anybody in here. Of the things that we willfully ignore, we willfully excuse ourselves out of, is do you believe this or not? I asked somebody the other day. He said, I don't have to go. I've been closer to God out there in the tree. I work with a bunch of hillbillies. Out there in the trees hunting deer than I ever was in any church building. And I said, I agree, man. There's been times where I've really felt it. But do you believe the Bible? And he said, yeah. And I said, well, then it don't matter. You're supposed to go to church because that's what God told us to do. It doesn't say church, fellowship of believers. You want to have 20 people in your house? You go ahead. We're going to keep having it up here, all right? But it doesn't matter that you don't want to go to church. See, this is the thing. I'm going to keep reading, and I'm going to get around to it. But this is the thing: is there's three problems that we have. If I can find it, I put it in here somewhere. We think God owes us a good life. We think God is trying to rob us of a good life with endless rules. But the reality is the things that God's telling us that seem hard, that seem unfair or whatever, is the thing that gives us the most happiness, is the thing that gives us a good life. He's not sitting there going, if you listen to me, I'll give you back your toy. He's telling, I like comparative language, right? It paints a picture. It's like me talking to Malachi, and I'm telling him, save your money, save your money, save your money. Matter of fact, there was a point in time where, years ago, where he got in some trouble, and so I made him work, and I took half his money to put into an investment account. I'm not trying to keep him from having fun. I'm not even giving him rules like to where I'm going to say, you're going to be broke until you start saving money, and then I'll let you have some money. I'm telling him cause and effect. If you'll save your money now, you'll be happier down the road. I'm explaining how to get what he wants. And in like term, us before God, we go to God and we say, well, I know I didn't do all that stuff you told me, but why do I got to pay for this now? And he's like, because you didn't do the stuff I told you. It's real simple. Find where I was. Frictionless isolation. Apps allow people to work, order food, and entertain themselves without ever looking at another human in the eye. This severely deprives the brain of oxytocin, the neurochemical responsible for bonding and long-term stability. Number 3, problem creep and threat-seeking brain. The human brains have evolved to survive, not be happy. What? No. When large historic threats like famine, plague, or tribal warfare are removed, the brain does not relax. It recalibrates. We haven't had enough emergencies. Expanding standards. Psychologists refer to this as a problem creep or concept creep. As life becomes safer and more comfortable, our threshold for what constitutes a problem lowers. My hair is doing a weird loopy thing. I can pick on myself. Somebody didn't go fast enough at the red light. And you hear, and like, thank God I've started backing up and hearing myself. I told my rig manager at work, this guy I work probably the closest with, I told him, I'm like, I'm going to go back to I don't even want to be around myself right now. Because I'm starting to hear myself and it's disgusting me a little bit. And it's like, I think sometimes we step back and we hear ourselves and like, that's what's, you know how, like, again, and I'm speaking from experience, like we feel like this tough guy, like this temper. Don't you cross me, no. You know how weak and pathetic that anybody can come in at any point in time and completely and utterly control you? This is what we're modeling as disciples of Christ? That somebody can walk in and completely determine how your whole 24 hours is going to go because they didn't go fast enough at a red light? Because your hair is doing a weird loopy thing and your mascara won't get right and you don't have enough money to retire 50 years, but we're got enough money to do whatever we want to do today? Hadn't been thankful for that. Overstimulation and dopamine bankruptcy. Our ancestors experienced long stretches of boredom. Man, boredom's so important. I'm telling you, boredom is the mother of creativity. So many things, so many pieces of art, so many great things have come out of boredom. You need to be bored sometimes. We started, I'm not telling you all that, but I will encourage you to, I'm going to encourage you hardcore, but we started getting back into social media fasting once a week. You want to know how hooked you are and you don't even realize it. Just don't use your phone for one day. Oh my God, it's like, all right, well, can I at least hold it? Can I rub it like a worry stone? It's pitiful. Like I said, I know it's long, but I thought it was really powerful. So, and it's eye-opening. Desensitization, easy for you to say. Infinite scrolling, video games, porn, and ultra-processed foods keep reward pathways permanently flooded. We don't know how to not be like all dopamined up anymore. We got to have a new hit. What is it? Can I get more of that dopamine? You know? The crash, the constant overstimulation downregulates dopamine receptors, leaving individuals feeling hollow, unmotivated, and anxious when faced with ordinary, slow-paced reality. We're so busy, and we don't know how to slow down, and that's the greatest lie we're telling ourselves because we don't want to slow down. Because then when we slow down, we have to face some ugly truths, some hard realities. So why can't I sit in my house for an hour without having to have something to distract? It's to the point now where I told Callan, it's like, I'll watch something and I'm like, well, I don't want to watch it on my phone, right? Because I want to scroll my phone while I'm watching something else. It's not enough. I'm wondering how I can get another screen in there, like a third, and just work them all out. Then I'll be happy. The realities of economic instability. While micro indicators like GDP often look strong, individual stability has grown precarious. Many feel squeezed by a modern economy that demands more for less. You know why they could do that so easily? Because none of us were paying attention. The expectation gap. Younger generations face a massive divergence between what they were promised, widespread prosperity, home ownership, etc., and the realities of rising housing costs, job insecurities and inflation, and then hyper-specialized labor. Work has become increasingly abstract, complex, and isolated. Many workers lack a tangible sense of purpose or craftsmanship, leading to widespread professional burnout. I think God owes us a good life, and we think God's trying to rob us of our good life with this endless rules and precedents and everything, when in reality he's just trying to tell you, I saw it coming the whole time. I've told you this stuff. You know it. If you step back and you slow down and you get rid of the distractions, and you can't ride for 10 minutes in the car without a radio on because we've got to have noise in the background. You know this is killing you. You're doing it to yourself, and just much like an addict, you turn around and you ask God, why did you let this happen to me? You owe me. And God said, not only do I owe you nothing because you're an unworthy servant and you're just doing what you ought to be doing, but I tried to give you everything and you turned around and threw it back in my face. I tried to tell you the secret. I tried to tell you that if happiness is your goal, you'll never catch it. You have to be driven by purpose. See, that was what I had to learn growing up is I changed so that everybody would like me, and everybody liked me, and then I'm like, I don't like any of these people. And then I changed again because I was like, I don't care what they think about me. And then I just didn't care. It almost became that was the point. You want me to do something, I want to do the opposite. Until I realized that what we're supposed to be doing, how we're supposed to be, is driven by purpose, driven by our goal, driven by our mission of what we owe God and what we can do for Him and serving Him. And then I don't really care what anybody else thinks, because I know that I'm living right. You're not going to control me. These little things aren't going to control me, because I know who I am in God, and I know what I'm supposed to do. I know that I'm supposed to be driven by purpose. See, it says in Deuteronomy 10:12-13, it says, and now Israel, what does the Lord your God require of you but to fear the Lord your God, to walk in all His ways, to love Him, to serve the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and to keep the commandments and statutes of the Lord your God, which I am commanding you today for your good. You want to have a really good life? Just do what God tells you to do. And the words of my Uncle Roger, he says, it's easier the hard way. Sometimes it's easier the hard way. Really brutal at first. I was talking to the men a little bit too. I'm going to speak to the men for a minute. And popular or not, you're not better but different. Your God-given role is the high king and priest, the leader of your family. Okay? Now, if you're doing it right, that role really sucks. You can say that, right? It's very hard, because you're supposed to be setting the tone of your house. You're supposed to be setting the precedents and the traditions and everything like that. So you need to be doing it first by example, and then others will follow suit. But it is the most unfair to you, because you're going to do it for a while and people aren't going to appreciate it or even notice, or they're just going to be like, oh, that's something else Dad wanted to do. I don't know. That's a direct quote from Calvin. I heard her say it the other day. Just a joke. I'm going to move on for time's sake. Briefly, I'm going to read the last 9 scriptures here, and I'm going to make a point. Because at the end of the day, especially with where we've gotten ourselves, this kind of addicted to chaos, addicted to distraction. The irony is you feel like getting yourself out of that and doing something to benefit yourself the least when you're the worst off. And so here's this really wise, profound advice I'm going to give you from the Bible. Who cares? Do it anyway. Right? because that's when you're going to heal. So we're going to read on about the 10 lepers. It said, on the way to Jerusalem, he was passing along between Samaria and Galilee, and as he entered a village, he was met by 10 lepers who stood at a distance. Remember, they were unclean. They couldn't get near him. You talk about problems, man. Like, we read over that stuff. You imagine getting leprosy back in the day? Then you had a real problem. And I talked about this, but it's like we don't have enough need to make us desperate enough to get to Jesus, I think sometimes. I have a hard time hearing guys like, I can't hear guys. Like, how desperate are you to get to him? Because these lepers couldn't get near him. I mean, they screamed and sounded like fools. I didn't care. If it meant that you would be cured from leprosy right now and you had to get to somebody in that lobby, you tell me who would stop you. I would run over each of you. I would punch a kid to get out there. Not really. Well, which kid? No. So on the way to Jerusalem, he was passing along between Samaria and Galilee, and he was entering a village, and he was met by 10 lepers who stood at a distance and lifted up their voices, saying, Jesus, Master, have mercy on us. When he saw them, he said to them, go and show yourself to the priests. And as they went, they were cleansed. Now, if you've been in church long enough, you've probably heard this message. But you know how easy it would have been for them to say, well, I'm not going to show myself to the priest. Look, I'm still a leper. Or like, Jesus, I don't even have the energy to get up. My foot fell off back there. You saw that. This arm's broke, you know. I don't want to go show myself to the priest. You hadn't done anything. And they could not have been healed until their faith was inactivated, and then they started doing what they were supposed to do. Healing came. Go and show yourself to the priest. And they went and were cleansed. Then one of them, when he saw he was healed, turned back, praising God with a loud voice. And he fell on his face at Jesus' feet, giving him thanks. Now he was a Samaritan. Then Jesus answered, were not 10 cleansed? Where are the 9? Was no one found to return and give praise to God except for this foreigner? And he said to him, rise and go your way. Your faith has made you well. So last but not least, and again, there's coming a time in our life and in this country, society, and the way reality of things that we need to get real honest with who we are and what we're guilty of. And the fact that if we're not intentional, nothing's going to change. Because we get ourselves, it says a man's own folly. A man gets, I don't know, this is King Josh, paraphrase, but a man's own doing screws him up, and then he rages against God. His heart rages against God about what he did. So this is kind of how it goes. Is we don't listen to God. God tells us the whole way, and we're going to say, yeah, I know. This is fun, and I know you love me, and I'll get to that eventually. And that causes problems, and it gets us into a whole world of problems, and we cry out to God, and we say, God, please fix this. He says, look, I will. Right? Through all mercy and all grace, all sacrifice, every miraculous help in every way possible, to the point where I'll come and I'll insert myself in your ultimate mess of humanity, to where I'm going to live underneath the curse of sin for all 33 years, not just dying on the cross. I'm going to take the hell, the most ultimate hell that could possibly be given, because I'm taking every man's sin upon me. I'm going to do every little thing, and I'm going to miraculously help you. And we say, well, I don't want to do that. That sounds hard. I want it the easy way. But we finally get around and God heals us, and then the minute we're healed, we're on to the next thing. Can't even remember to pray, to thank God for the gifts we currently have in this weak, soft version of reality that we're able to live in right now. It's not an insult to y'all. This is just fact. You can look around. I mean, things have never been better, and never been easier, and we've never been more unhappy. We've never been less capable. Professing themselves to be wise, they become fools. And we've got to get back to what does the Bible tell me to do. I am an unworthy servant, and unforgiveness harboring in my heart over these petty things and constantly doing things my way is not going to fix the problem. It is not the answer. I'm closing with this. You can come, baby. Invite the prayer team to come. Like I said, I know these parables, man. It seems like it's constant. It's beating you up about stuff. But then I look at it, and these are just warnings from the only perfect man who ever walked the face of the earth. And if the warnings are hitting, that means there was a good reason they were warnings. Because you wouldn't feel real beat up by them if you weren't going through this stuff. And I'm talking about from personal experience. And so, like, while I don't want you to come every week and feel terrible about yourself, and I'm just a piece of crap, and God's amazing, and thank God for that. But it's more about how you were designed. You were never designed to walk through this life without God, without hand in hand with your Creator. You were to consider Him in all things. I've said it before, and I love the definition, and it sounds terrible, but anything you don't include God in is by definition a godless work. So if you don't pray, if you don't consider God, if you just go about it and you take that job or whatever else, and then everything goes bad, and you come to God and say, God, why'd you let this happen to me? And God said, I don't. Did you even include me in that? Altars are open. I want you to come and pray.